Searchlights cut upward through the fog like pale fingers reaching into nothing. The beams converge on a single point in the black sky above Santa Monica. It does not move. It does not fall. The anti-aircraft guns below fire in steady rhythm, a sound like a heartbeat that will not stop. 1,400 rounds. 1 hour. And in the morning, the city will ask, what were we shooting at? On the evening of February 24th, 1942, less than 3 months after Pearl Harbor, the radar stations of the Western Defense Command detected unidentified targets approximately 120 miles offshore from Los Angeles. The operators logged the contact. They reported it up the chain. At 2:25 in the morning on February 25th, air raid sirens wailed across the city. A total blackout was ordered. Streetlights died. Car headlights went dark. Families moved into basements and shelters. The city held its breath. The 37th Coast Artillery Brigade was activated. 4 anti-aircraft batteries received the order to fire. The gunners did not hesitate. They had been trained for this moment since December 7th. They did not know what they were shooting at. They only knew that something was in the sky, and it was not supposed to be there. What happened next was recorded in the logs of the Western Defense Command, in the testimony of witnesses, in the photographs published by the Los Angeles Times on February 26th. A large object, or possibly multiple objects, was observed suspended over Culver City and Santa Monica. It moved slowly. It did not climb. It did not dive. The searchlights found it and held it. The anti-aircraft guns fired directly at it. Witnesses reported seeing the rounds strike the object. They reported seeing it take direct hits. And it did not fall. 1,430 rounds were fired into the night sky. The object remained. The object did not explode. The object did not burn. The object did not descend, trailing smoke. It simply remained, suspended in the convergence of searchlights, while the guns below fired and fired and fired. By 3 o'clock in the morning, the order came to cease fire. The object was gone. The searchlights swept the sky and found nothing. The all-clear siren sounded at 3:55. The blackout was lifted. The city emerged into the gray dawn of February 25th, 1942, and asked the question that would never be fully answered. What had they been shooting at? The official response came swiftly. Secretary of the Navy Frank Knox issued a statement on February 25th. False alarm. War jitters. Nothing more. Secretary of War Henry Stimson followed on February 26th with a more specific explanation. Weather balloons. The military had released weather balloons. The radar had picked them up. The gunners had mistaken them for enemy aircraft. The city had panicked. That was all. But the photograph published by the Los Angeles Times on February 26th showed something that did not look like a weather balloon. It showed a large, distinct object suspended in the convergence of multiple searchlight beams. The editors of the Times later admitted that the photograph had been heavily retouched. They did not explain why. They did not explain what had been removed or altered. They only said that the photograph had been retouched. In 1949, 7 years after the event, the official report was filed. The source of the radar contact was listed as meteorological, a weather balloon. The investigation was closed, but the investigators noted something in their final summary. The source could not be verified. No weather balloon launch was recorded for the night of February 24, 1942. No launch order existed in any file. No balloon was ever recovered. The source was meteorological in classification only. The actual source remained unknown. In 1983, 41 years after the event, the Office of Air Force Historical Studies conducted a review. They examined the logs. They interviewed the surviving witnesses. They studied the photographs. Their conclusion was careful and measured. The origin of the object or objects observed on the night of February 25, 1942, remained unidentified. War nerves and an actual aircraft of unknown origin were both possible. The record, they noted, did not allow for certainty. 5 civilians died that night. 3 were killed in automobile accidents during the blackout. 2 died of heart attacks, their hearts unable to bear the fear. 0 enemy aircraft were confirmed destroyed. 0 confirmed kills. 1,430 rounds fired into the darkness, and nothing fell. The searchlight operators who were there that night spoke of what they saw. They spoke of an object that did not behave like any aircraft they had ever trained to track. They spoke of it taking direct hits and remaining intact. They spoke of it moving with a slowness that seemed deliberate, almost patient. But their testimony was filed away. It was not classified as secret. It was simply filed away. The way files are filed away when the official explanation has already been decided. The radar operators who detected the contact were never called to testify publicly. Their logs were preserved, but their voices were not recorded. They knew what they had seen on their screens. They knew that something had been there, 120 miles offshore, moving toward the coast, but they were not asked to speak about it. The official explanation did not require their input. The gunners who fired the rounds were told they had done their duty. They had responded to the order. They had fired at the target. That was all that mattered. Whether they had hit anything, whether anything had been there to hit, these questions were not asked. The order had been given. The order had been obeyed. The rest was silence. The Battle of Los Angeles remains in the historical record as a footnote, a curiosity, a moment of wartime panic that was quickly explained and filed away. But the file was never truly closed. The explanation was never truly complete. The object or objects observed on the night of February 25, 1942, were never identified. They were never explained. They were simply forgotten, the way things are forgotten when the official version has been decided and the city has moved on. If the unfinished histories haunt you the way they haunt me, if you find yourself wondering what was in the sky that night, what the searchlights held, what the guns were firing at, there is another file on the desk, waiting. The archive is always open.